The fatal contradiction at the heart of this budget is the expectation that consumer expenditure will power the economic recovery, except the government's own forecasts show that wages will remain stagnant for years to come. Hi, I'm Dan Nahum. I'm an economist with the Centre for Future Work.
And I'm Mark Dean. I'm a research fellow with the Centre for Future Work.
By far the most important source of personal income in Australia is wages and salaries. So if they don't recover, and the budget doesn't think they will, consumer spending will be severely curtailed. The other source of cognitive dissonance in this budget is the contradiction between the hoped-for burst of consumer spending and the rapid retrenchment of special income supports that were provided during the pandemic and then yanked away by the government as soon as the economy started to recover. Government supports for personal income and wages, like the Job Seeker COVID supplement and subsidies to business like JobKeeper, have already been withdrawn.
So that's the concerning macro picture. Dan and I are going to dig into the details a bit of what the budget means for a few key interrelated sectors. Skills, higher education and manufacturing are tightly bound together. Vocational education and training, university education and research, and manufacturing are all job intensive and they're chronically underinvested in by the coalition government. And this budget is no exception. So what's happened to higher education in this budget, Dan?
Hasn't been a good year for higher education, Mark. So over the period since COVID started, the education sector as a whole has lost 35,000 jobs. So that's tens of thousands of our most skilled and dedicated professionals across Australia who are now out of work or really seeking, it's thrown their lives into disarray in a lot of cases. But this budget actually makes matters worse because the withdrawal of Commonwealth support that was there to help our research sector as COVID struck and international student receipts went down, that's being withdrawn, and actually what's going to happen over the forward estimate, so the next few years, that's going to be a 9.3% decrease in Commonwealth funding, so that's almost 10% of the Commonwealth funding for universities that's going to drop off. And a real plan to increase the capacity and resilience of our higher education sector would be about the Commonwealth funding universities properly so they weren't as reliant on international students and international student fees just to meet their basic research needs and capacity. And in turn, stabilising and strengthening higher education would be really good right across the economy because it would support innovation and productivity and skills, and those are all things that we're going to need in our recovery anyway. So
more than just a patent box, you say?
I'm really, I don't think this shows a lot of vision as far as the university sector is concerned, this budget.
Yep, I agree with you there.
Yeah. So tell us about skills specifically in vocational education and training.
Right, well, of course, leading on from higher education is the vocational education and training sector. We know that we need a skilled pipeline of apprentices and trainees to do a lot of the jobs in the other parts of the economy where you need skilled workers. And basically over the last 8 years, the coalition government has continually cut money from the vet sector. So they've cut funding in every budget. Unions and other advocates have called for $3 billion of funding to be restored. And that would equate to about $750 million being injected back into the vocational education and training system every year. But in fact, what they've done is basically the opposite. They're continuing to cut funding from the sector. The Australian Education Union, in particular, has called for that increase. Basically, the forward estimates this year show that it's actually going to decrease over the next 4 years. And largely, they've made that decision based on the idea that they funded an extraordinary amount of money to the vet sector during the pandemic. So they believe that because they've supported it during the pandemic, they don't need to continue supporting it.
As if the crisis were already over.
As if the crisis were already over, and as if they hadn't already been stripping money from the vet sector over the last 8 years. Absolutely. So it's a massive problem. And it won't restore the level of apprenticeships, everything they're doing. So boosting apprenticeships commencements has it's said it's going to support 170,000 apprenticeships, but in reality, that won't even restore the level of apprenticeships that were in the pipeline prior to the pandemic, and again in response to the cuts to funding to the vet sector over the last 8 years either. So really, what looks like big ticket items going to vet in this budget have actually been quite disappointing and quite small scale. If you actually want to build a future vocational education and training system that is the envy of the world as it used to be, then you're actually not doing the right thing. So that's what's going on with skills in vet.
Yeah, okay, yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. A fully funded, publicly funded VET sector is really going to be needed in rebuilding the capacity of our economy and building our way into a new economy post-crisis as well.
And of course, you are the expert on that, where we think about the way that vet links intimately to manufacturing.
Yeah, I was actually incredulous this budget. It was a really a jaw drop moment for me when the Treasurer, in his budget speech, announced the Modern Manufacturing Initiative as the kind of flagship item for manufacturing, which is from last year's budget. Right. So
just re-announced. Yeah.
just re-announced. If I had been the Treasurer, I would have taken that out. Just keep quiet on that.
Well, we know that you're definitely not the Treasurer in this one, Dan.
Yeah. So I mean, it's amazing because we still don't have the ability to produce vaccines effectively. Even though the Commonwealth is bungling the vaccine rollout right now, we still haven't done anything about that. The government said something about building some mRNA manufacturing capacity here in Australia, but it's got little NFPs, not for published, on all the dollar figures, so we don't actually know what that means yet. So we'll need to keep an eye on that and just monitor it and see if they actually do anything about that, or whether they try to sort of weasel out by importing the vaccines rather than actually building the capacity here in Australia.
Right.
And then there's the continued greenwashing of the fossil fuel industry as well, wherein they produce hydrogen from gas or coal, and they say that it's clean because they're putting carbon capture and storage on it, which still hasn't been shown to work at commercial scale, by the way. And it's not clean. It's not clean, and it's not really manufacturing. It's them protecting their fossil fuel mates.
Of course. Yep.
Yeah. But we have demonstrated here at the Centre for Future Work that if manufacturing were funded to a level and co-invested into a level commensurate with our national needs, what you would expect of a wealthy country, like the middle of the OECD, we could add 400,000 jobs and $50 billion of GDP by building a competitive and strong manufacturing industry here in Australia. So there really is a remarkable opportunity to take advantage of that at the moment, is slipping by.
Yeah, and if I could just go back to skills for a moment, that you've just reminded me that the job trainer program as well, which is basically just replacing job maker, which was apparently going to create 450,000 jobs. It didn't. It created 1,100. And what looks like mostly just a rebadging of that program into job trainer even misses out manufacturing skills. So it's not even targeted. It's targeted so specifically that there is really no scope to actually understand that the manufacturing sector can create 400,000 jobs if we actually embrace the green and renewable economy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And in our full analysis of the Coalition's measures, we've shown at the Centre for Future Work that this budget was an opportunity for the government to recognise that a sustained recovery needs a more balanced approach, one that's focused on wages growth, job security, public and private investment in our high-value industries, and vital human and caring services, as well as a willingness to seize the opportunities that are associated with the accelerating energy and climate transitions. But overall, this budget has failed to really address the needs of Australians emerging from an unprecedented and frightening chapter in our economic and social history.
To see our full analysis, please go to our website at futurework.org.au.
The bottom 20% get nothing. They're really unfair tax cuts.
People want to see much stronger action from the government when it comes to climate change.
It's no coincidence that we have a wages crisis in Australia.
Transitioning to net zero emissions, it doesn't seem like there's much room for gas.